This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. At the end of the day, I'm just a bloke with a chest freezer in his backyard, and before undertaking anything such as an ice bath, you should consult your health professionals and do your own research. Now, time for the show. G'day legends, it's Trav Dittmar here, host of the Cold Exposure and Hot Topics podcast. I've got Tuan Luu here with me. Thanks for coming on, Tuan.
Pleasure having you. Thanks for having me.
No, of course, mate. Absolute pleasure. So we've just done an ice bath, and you were in there for 2 minutes today. How'd you go with that?
That was surprisingly difficult because I've done a few. I'm sort of on the newer side of the ice bath journey, so to speak. So I did 6 by the beach, right? That's sort of like my entry into it. So, but this today was actually a little bit more difficult because you mentioned the actual water was just below 1 degrees or something, right? And no, it's like definitely that like next level there in terms of the actual mental challenge.
Yeah, and I think my biggest learning curve when I went from the ice baths at the beach, where you're using seawater, you fill up a pool, and then you're dumping ice cubes in. When you're going into the chest freezer, there's actually no escape, is there? There's no warm little pockets or anything
That's
like
right,
that. It's just
right.
You go any deeper and it gets colder, basically. So.
Yeah, it's like out there, the ones at the beach, like you can sort of wriggle around a bit, and there are, like you said, pockets where you can warm yourself like throughout the 2 minutes. But it's like this is plunging yourself into the abysses, and it doesn't matter how you move, it's below 1 degree.
Plunging into the abyss, I like that. So once again, thank you for coming on. Like, we've only just recently connected, haven't we? It was,
we have.
It was actually through, I think, a post that you shared regarding the benefits of sobriety.
Yep. Yeah. So it's funny how we sort of like met because we actually just a few days ago connected in person, but it started because I recently shared a post about quitting alcohol for an entire year back in 2020 and the kind of life-changing benefits. And you resonated with it as well, and that's sort of we actually started a conversation from there. And I think it's definitely something that's really interesting to kind of have a bit of a chat about, right? So the benefits of sobriety and the kind of like health benefits, mental, emotional benefits, and that you get from it, but also sort of realizing how much time like we spent like on say activities or environments or people that we actually reclaim back to then step into things that give us a lot more fulfillment, joy, clarity, and so on.
Exactly. Yeah, I love that, bro. And obviously factored into that as well as how much you might have spent financially in those times as well. I know certainly for me. There was 1 year where we got our bar tabs printed off. It was, I think, 5-6 years ago now, and that was horrifying just seeing how much I'd spent at one pub that year. So it certainly has its financial benefits, doesn't it, as well as everything else?
Yeah, it's one of those things I said in one of the points was that immediately by not going out, you make more money by not spending any money, right, on those activities, and so then you reclaim that energy and space, right, to work on your personal development, which seems to be something that's kind of like a really good theme, a very good recurring theme, which is people now, especially even locally in Adelaide, getting more into wellness and yoga and meditation and so on. And you got like your centres like Bali or some parts of Melbourne or New South Wales where you have people with groups and communities practicing it, but it's just been really cool to see like Adelaide just over the last year and a bit just sort of like getting into that sort of like space, which is super awesome to see.
And I keep hearing things on the news, when I say the news, I don't really follow it, but you see articles pop up every now and again, and outside of the usual doom and gloom, there's actually, a lot of younger people now who aren't going towards alcohol as, I'm 18, let's let loose sort of thing, and more people are actually looking at, if they're going to drink something, the lower alcohol or no alcohol, and they're actually focusing more on themselves, which is really cool to see, I think.
It is. It's a different sort of narrative than say growing up say on like a millennial side, right? So that back then it's just getting on the piss, university years and so on, right? And so it's been good. The narrative's sort of changing, right? As people making more healthy, productive choices and so on.
And figuring out that they don't need to drink to be able to have a good time.
Exactly.
It's so cliche, but you can probably attest to this. I can attest to this being nearly 6 months now. It's I've never felt more alive, more joy out of life, you know, and that's and quitting alcohol's been a big part of that, at least in my view.
Exactly. You know? Something you remember I said it just a couple of days ago. Like, there's no high that beats just being sober, right?
Yeah.
And it's only when you go to the extreme other contrast that then when you actually stop that you see, wow, you have this gratitude for what a difference that makes, right? And it gives you this like newfound kind of like opportunity and perspective of, wow, you know, what can I accomplish now? What can I do?
Exactly, because you build that trust in yourself as well, don't you? Where it's
That's
like,
right.
hey, you know, I hung out with people that I used to drink with, say, or, you know, I went to a situation where normally I'd drink, and you know what, I didn't, and what else can I do now? Like,
That's right.
so
And then when you peel back the layers, you realise there's a lot of like, I was having a chat with a friend about this, about the kind of habits and the kind of triggers, as in what situations are you in that you find yourself going, look, I need a drink, right? Oh, I want a drink, right? Is it because of stress? Is it because of certain, like I said, like type of people? Was it because of like, say, whatever it is, right? Like conflict or something that you have to resolve with yourself, right? So looking for those triggers, just sitting with yourself and just cultivating that self-awareness definitely helps. And alcohol is just one variant of it, but it's a lot of it is habits, right? And how do you replace the habits with more, you know, productive habits, healthy habits, and so on.
And I'll even like to take that one step further. I actually had another guest on over the weekend who he's been on his own journey with sobriety and stuff as well. Even taking that one step further, it's not just about habits, you know, it's actually about the symptoms, you know, so the symptoms are actually going out and drinking and, you know, numbing your mind, whatever you're using it for, of the deeper thing going on. You know, and so once you get to the core of that, it becomes a lot easier to go, you know, I only had a realisation like this recently where I went, God, I'm stressed out by X, Y, and Z going on, and this is when I really want to drink. It's like, okay, so the stress is actually the problem. The alcohol, well, turning to the alcohol is the symptom of the problem. So, you know, being able to reframe it and take that out. A, you grow in more awareness of yourself, but B, you're actually benefiting your health, obviously, as well.
Yeah, that's a very powerful point, because I liked that what you guys said about the symptoms, right? Because it's like underneath it, it's not about specifically the alcohol, so to speak, but what gap or void haven't you addressed, right? That you're using alcohol to fill and so on. And I like what you said, where there will be periods of maybe more stress than usual, right? Whether your work life, your business, or whatever it might be, right? Where alcohol might be an easy cop out, and a lot of other sort of things, right? It could be junk food. For some people, it's overworking, right? And so on. And it's learning to identify. And this is why I love exercise. So for a lot of people, when you go through those stressful and those tough periods, right? A lot of the fundamentals, it becomes very easy to stop doing the fundamentals, right? Taking care of your mental health, your emotional health, your physical health, and so on. So basic things like getting your vitamin D, going for a walk, you know, drinking enough water, like making sure your sleep's still on point, right? And it's just those basic things that we need to remember to take care of ourselves. Right? It's something that's just really, really, really important, you know.
Oh, absolutely. You know, when you are hungover and that sort of thing, those are the things that get neglected.
That's right.
You know, the things that are probably going to help you hangover are the things you don't want to do.
Exactly.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It is.
Now, well, that's how we met, basically, through that post and, you know, resonating over sobriety, and we've just talked about that for 10 minutes already. I think we're in for...
Because it's definitely a big point, but yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good sign for the rest of the interview, mate. So, and this will be my first time hearing a bit of this too, but just tell us a bit about your background. So, you know, I've obviously just met you in the last few weeks, but you can sum up a bit of your story.
Yeah, for sure, man. So, see where I start. So, I was born in Adelaide, right? And I was born to Vietnamese parents, so they were like self-employed immigrants. So, you know, I remember just growing up, going with my dad to the flea markets, right? Just helping him with, say, because he used to run an electronics store and sold some, what do you call it, like computer stuff. And I used to remember just helping him out as a kid. Growing up, I never really resonated with, I guess, the traditional path of going to school, get a job, etc. Because I guess growing up, right, I had that background of parents sort of always sort of like making it on their own, right, through different ventures that they had. And so after year 12, I went to university, and the degree I did was psychology. And something that I always loved was, that fascinated me, is about human behaviour and why people do what they do, right? There's a bit of a precursor to that. In school, I was one of the kids who we'd wag school. We're not really follow along and so on.
Yeah.
And I was a bit of a musician. We kind of just used the wag just to take our guitar, maybe go catch the O-Bahn in 44 to TDP, smoke weed and just write music. That was our thing. But I was something that always fascinated me is about people and just why people make certain decisions and so on, right? I was deeply just really, I guess, curious as a kid, so that was my degree in university. But I remember when I was my third year, I was sitting down with course counselor and everything, and we were talking about what's the path after Bachelor's of Psych, and they talk about clinical and so on. I ended up not just doing it because that path didn't sit right with me, so to speak.
Why do you think that is?
The reason for that is because I love human behaviour part, but one thing I also love is being able to inspire people and to express myself through music. So something I've been doing since high school was playing in a band, playing guitar, and all throughout university, right? We played in the band, we just did a lot of gigs around Adelaide, and just writing music, and I felt that the purest expression of the shared collective human experience of what we go through and so forth and so on. The best way I could put it is I didn't know what I wanted to do at the time. I just knew I didn't want it to be average, if that makes sense. Right? That was the thing that just stood out to me. In hindsight, I caught up with some friends more recently, and they said you kind of just dodged wood, not doing clinical, right? The kind of stress and so on, but everyone's path is a little bit different. But for me, after third year university, I ended up getting a few sales jobs, right? Just while I was just sort of figuring my next, my move after university and so on, right? And through sales jobs, through door knocking, call center stuff, different things, as I learned a lot of the aspects of human behavior through sales, through marketing, and then I actually got invited to come along with a friend to a seminar, right? Which Branson and Mark Boris and a couple other people were talking about and sharing their stories, right?
Yeah.
And that kind of introduced me to the whole world of entrepreneurship. Now, it's kind of if I look back, I think the path was always kind of predestined to go down that way because my parents were on the self-employed side, always sort of aligned with that, internally.
Make your own luck sort of thing.
Exactly, right? And so I then dived into entrepreneurship, and me and my friend's first business was a web development business. And I remember just at the time where this is way before the internet and people were learning to teach you can start a business. But basically, entrepreneurship is the cool thing nowadays, right? On Instagram and so on. But back then, you were just you want to do what, right? You're this kind of this weirdo in the fringe of society thing. Yeah. So
you're challenging the status quo. We've never had that before.
Exactly. So, but it's such a different landscape than now, where it's the cool thing, right? It's now it's just the opposite, right? But back then, I remember we just running around just selling websites to anything, anybody, restaurants, construction, small businesses, and so on. Yeah. I learned a lot from the first venture, but that didn't really end up going anywhere. And there's a few other ventures I did over the next couple of years, which had varying degrees of success and failures and so on. Yeah. And then in 2016. I stumbled across my sort of first bit of, I guess in my 20s where I got successful, was a digital book publishing business. Yep. And through there I was able to kind of travel a little bit, right? Because in my 20s, my dream at the time was I wanted to see the world, right? Just little around and so on. And so 2017, I ended up living in Thailand for a little bit, right? Which was super nice, right? I remember a friend of mine who was along with me for the journey, I remember we were sitting on a laptop just by the beach, this is amazing and everything like that. But then after a while, it's just this kind of got a little bit boring, right? Because you think, okay, you dream of being by the beach and whatever, but in 2 months of the same thing, it's becomes the standard thing. And also, I guess, the dream is okay, you're by the beach and just working on a laptop at a time, but the reality is getting sand on your laptop, the winds and everything, and so on.
Trying to record and people in the background.
Exactly. But I was a little bit younger at the time, but that was a really good period because I ran that business for a good 4 years, right? So a little bit in Thailand, and then a bit of a sort of like, you know, trotting across Europe, right? So places like Budapest, I ended up staying for a little bit, which is super nice in Hungary.
Yeah.
Bit of Spain, bit of Italy, and so on, right? So that was super nice. And then I ended up coming back to Melbourne, right? But then around, we all know what happened during 2020, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Melbourne was a bit of a shitstorm and everything like that.
Yeah, I think the residents are still recovering from that. So
a little bit of recovering, right? So March 2020, come back here, right? All my family in Adelaide and so on. But it's been a really, really good few years just being back here. Long story short, after 4 years of my digital book publishing business, right, there's some major changes to the industry, like a lot of compliance, regulatory stuff, which made it a little bit tricky to operate the same way which I did for like the last 4 years, and a couple of other sellers on the platform. Just basically, Amazon was the big platform. We did a lot of the distribution of books and so on, and audiobooks and stuff, right? So, and long story short, made it a little tricky to keep going with that. So then the logical thing for me is, okay, let's adapt, right? And in 2020, I was looking around at, say, where I could basically find opportunities and dive into. And so, at the time, and even still now, right, real estate, right, there's plenty of buyers, not a lot of like houses and so on.
Yeah.
That was the big challenge with real estate agents, right? And while I was figuring out the next move, I was learning from a lot of, I was investing a lot of masterminds and resources from guys in the US, right, people who run businesses in like other places. And I sort of model of, say, helping real estate agents, basically helping them find buyers and sellers and so on. And for those on more on the business side, I saw the US as just a little bit further ahead than Australia. Australia's a little bit sort of like slow to adapt to these things.
Yeah.
So I found a bit of an opportunity to basically help real estate agents here, right, with buyers and sellers through helping them qualify their sellers to make sure that like people have like an intent to buy and sell and that kind of thing. And so that was the opportunity gap, and I actually started an agency from there, right, where basically I found the people and the talent. We basically built a team, and then we basically help Australian real estate agents, right?
Yeah, wow.
And so I did that for a good 2.5 years. We built a team up to 12 people.
Oh, wow.
Right? So we've got call center staff, we've got media buyers, right? I got a VA on the team, right? We also have someone who does the setting side. And so I was in charge of the account relationship management with the real estate agents, just managing expectations and making sure that everything's coordinated. That was really good period, because we got a lot of results for our clients, and I had a lot of growth as well, like on my side of things. But during that period, of 2020 to late 2022, right, I put a lot of things, just like, I was very tunnel vision to like business, right?
A lot of stuff on the back burner, this is what
Exactly. And I think everyone has some variation of this during COVID, where people stopped socializing as much, people became a little bit more insulated, right, especially after lockdowns, and and the way someone chooses to spend their time, right, is different. Mine was productive in a sense, where there's a lot of growth out of it, a lot of business growth and everything. But anytime you veer too extreme or too one thing, then eventually there's, in an interesting way, the universe kind of appears, kind of pulls you backwards, right? Like in a sense where I was experiencing like burnout, right? I was getting like exhausted, I was like, taking care of myself and so on, right? So towards the late end of 2022, like I said, I just had a lot of trouble sleeping, right? I quit alcohol at a certain point in time, obviously a long time, but I remember there was a point where I'm like, man, I was just sitting with the weight of, say, like pressure and client expectations and stress and so on. And I just didn't know what to do. I was just like, you know, I'm just gonna go outside and go for a run, right? And I hated running growing up as a kid.
Oh mate, I'm still at that point.
But it took like a bit of like a breaking point where I just like, how do I handle this stress? Like I tried meditating, right, and all that sort of forth, right? But the running, kind of getting out of the house, that, and then just running just down block and back, right, 1 kilometer, that gave me the most clarity in months, right?
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And from there, I actually relearned to take care of myself again, right, and to embrace good healthy habits, drink water, and journal and have gratitude. And it was actually a few months later I started to wind down a bit of the agency service because it got to a point where I was just, like I said, building and making money for money's sake, right, and so on. So I wound it down to basically for me something manageable, like say marketing consulting for folks like in my network and things, where I get to work within the business, right, building their systems, right, consulting them on hires, on talent acquisition, and so on.
Yep.
Rather than running a team and then, like I said, like managing client campaigns and so on, right?
Yeah.
That for me, the reason I got into entrepreneurship was to have, like I said, time freedom, and I veered the furthest thing from that after 2 and a bit years, right? And so I guess after adapting the habits of running, right, just kind of learning to prioritize myself again from those small habits, right? If I fast forward to now though, through doing marketing consulting, I realized that clients started asking me a lot of questions about not necessarily marketing and systems, but they asked me a lot of questions about health and fitness, right, and optimizing their lifestyle, and mindset and all that sort of stuff. So something that's been interesting is since coming down, living by the beach again, and just being around like-minded people, right? Everyone's got different stories and different challenges they go through, but some of the conversations, perspectives I've been having lately just shows me something I've been saying a lot is timing is divine.
Yes.
Because fitness and health has always been some part of my life and personal development in different, I guess, iterations of self throughout the years. But this rises back to the ikigai, the passion thing, right? Which is I've always wanted to think, wow, this would be cool to actually, build a business and basically aligned around your strengths, what you enjoy doing and how you help other people. And so it's getting out of your own way, and it's getting to a point where I guess, then again, I had a chat with a friend about this, and I said, maybe when you were younger, like that was the thing, but you need to go through different life experiences, build out your sort of like different pillars of skills, so then you come back to it. Similar to what you said about just earlier, that this isn't your first rodeo with podcasts, but sometimes it's going away from the journey, building up things, and then you come back to it, and then you're just so much more aligned with a lot more clarity about where you're moving towards.
Spot on, and I think, like, to build on that a bit, like when you go to school, we all went through it, kids are still going through it. I think it's getting a bit better now, but that's very subjective. Where it's you get into year 10 and suddenly it's, oh shit, you got to think about what do I want to do with my life, and then you've got to have this plan, and you haven't had any life experience yet, you're still under your parents' roof most of the time. And like I'm 28 and I'm still figuring it out, but like I've had a heap of life experience, as you very, very clearly have as well. And it's once you get that you go, these are the things that light me up. These are the things I'm doing because I think I'm meant to be doing it, but I don't, it doesn't really do anything for me.
Tell me about it,
And like the other things where it's like, why am I even doing this? And that category is more like your bad habits and stuff that you pick up on. And, we're obviously talking about alcohol and weed and different things like that, but you don't get any of that.
That's true.
when you're expected to make these decisions, it's crazy to me.
That's it.
But so I mean, you've given us a plethora of information there about you, mate. So thank you very much for that. And it's almost a bit of like, where do we start? But I think I'd really like to just delve in and go over the course of these entrepreneurial ventures, and sitting where you are now. What's the biggest thing that you've taken out of that journey? If there was one, or you can give us a couple if you like.
My 27-year-old self would never take this on board, but it sounds simple, but be patient with the journey, right? Anytime that you try to rush the journey, or you have some sort of expectation, or you try to go faster, then the universe will teach you a lesson, right? And bring you back, right?
Yeah.
And something that I learned, particularly running has made it super articulate and clear, but you can apply this for anything, whether you're starting or you're managing, whatever. It's a lot of times you got to slow down to speed up.
Right? Absolutely, yeah.
And in marathon running, there's an analogy. It's like it's not about who's the fastest; it's who can slow down the least. Right? Because anytime you fail to take care of yourself, because if you imagine yourself like a car or an engine or a vehicle, whatever, to get you from where you are now to where you want to go with your goals, right? You also got to make sure that you can look after that engine. You got to fuel it with the right, like fuel, right? And so on for the long ride. And anytime that you rush, you take a shortcut, or maybe you veer off from the detour and through the highway of life, let's call it that, right? Detours can look like many things. It could look like shiny objects into them. It could look like something like Alex Hormozy calls a woman in a red dress. That could be an opportunity. That could be even relationships that might not actually serve you long term, right? And so on, right? It's being mindful of those things and making sure that, this is where you want to go, right? And not getting so distracted, and just like being true to yourself, right? For everything.
Yeah, so it's a real importance of finding your why, isn't it? Like it's such a big concept in personal development, but if you don't have that clarity, you don't have that sense of purpose, and you don't have that direction, well, you're just wading in the pool, aren't you? You're doing what you think you should be doing. You're not really filling your cup, and it's not really,
Yeah. I'll give you another perspective lately, which someone from one of the wellness events says, which I just fucking love, right? So imagine that you're on like a life raft, right? Going towards where you're wanting to desire to end up going anyway, right? And you're going downstream there. Rather than fighting the current or kind of just like veer around, you just enjoy the ride, right? Because in some ways, the world is taking care of you, right? Yeah. So there's so many different perspectives. There's sure, go hard at your goals, right? Like go aggressive, like wake up, be proactive. But then there's another thing altogether. Now, it depends on where you're at right now. If you're someone who struggles with basic foundations, it's like, okay, get up, motherfucker,
yeah.
But for those who are more on, say, the high achiever side, who really have that dialed in, sometimes the counterintuitive thing is like, hey, allow, and it's even harder, right, for them in that instance. It's allowing yourself, right, to let what you want to unfold.
Yeah,
right?
And further to that, it's almost a subconscious sense of naivety, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I've done all these things, now I should just be able to tunnel vision and focus. But as you know, as I know, as everyone knows, you're never done growing, you're never done healing, you're never done getting clarity over anything. Life is just this constant state of flow. And just touching on the idea of tunnel vision versus and hustling or drawing back, there's a season for everything.
That's
Doesn't
right.
last forever.
That's right.
And when you let go of the expectation, like you say, and just listen to what's happening, what you're feeling intuitively, your body might just be screaming at you, going, look, I need a break. Give me some sleep. Like, I need something other than a coffee.
That's right. That's right.
Let's have a rest. Or you might be bored with your resting period now, and it's time to just nail it. Or something comes up and triggers you, and it's a season of healing.
Exactly.
And once you open yourself up to that, everything else kind of falls into place. Your purpose becomes clearer, and what you need to do becomes clearer. You also learn the ability to say no to things.
That's right.
And again, going back to the alcohol side of things, that's a hard one for people to do sometimes, because their identities become entrenched in that. All of their mates do that kind of thing. And it's, once you get into the habit of saying no to things that aren't in alignment with you, it becomes so easy to say yes to other things as well, doesn't it?
It does.
Like as soon as I freed myself of the, sort of finish work, go to the pub now, there's another $50 out of my bank account just on a random Tuesday afternoon, like, okay, I've said no to that. Now I can say yes to, Em, let's go out for dinner tonight, or, all of these different things come to you when you, I guess, let go of that expectation, let go of the ties to outcomes and stuff like that, and just allow yourself to be and just flow, and it all comes down to that finding of your purpose, and then it's a domino effect.
And the beautiful thing is it comes from that genuine place of love, and it doesn't come from you trying to not kind of thing, right? Because the boundaries from that place comes from a place of you just understand yourself and what you allow, what you won't allow, to such a level where when you do make a choice, it's coming from a place of intention, of genuine, like I said, genuine intent, right?
Yes.
And that's when the experience of what you enjoy in the moment becomes more fulfilling, more satisfying, right? In the little things, in the big things, and then so on, right? I think a lot of things, which is even on the let's take on the health and fitness side with nutrition and diet and so forth. For myself, I tend to be very flexible on the eating side of things. I think something that's a really big challenge with people is their relationship to food and their relationship to eating and so on, right? And so one thing that I like to try to push back against is extreme dieting, extreme fads, or black and white thinking, right? Because what it creates is disordered emotions around that say, oh, I feel guilty about eating this chocolate, right? The question is how do you build your life in a way where when you get to enjoy it, you're choosing out of intention and you get to enjoy it, right? And being genuine about it.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we're not designed for, as you said, the word is seasons, right? The seasons doesn't mean a lifetime of this just, I'm not going to eat, chocolate or whatever it is.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So,
that's deprivation, and that's sort of, and there's a lot of coaches that will talk about this, but that's then giving foods a good and a bad label, which is a very unhealthy way to look at it to begin with, isn't it?
Exactly. And it's about, for me, one of my values is alignment, right? Holistic alignment, because how do you create sustainability and consistency, right? It's, I like that you said earlier, it's not necessary. Habits is on one level, and that's like a mechanical, tactical way to get someone going, get someone in momentum and so forth, right? But then underneath the level, we were talking about symptoms, but then underneath the symptoms is something actually I work with more closely with personal clients, is more identity shifting work, right?
Yeah.
And that's actually a lot of the magic that I love working with, right? Because something that's an entryway of working with me, I always love to say fitness is the gateway to self-development. And then once you get those wins, right? And then once you start getting momentum, wow, what else can I change and do? It opens up this new layer of awareness, because underneath that, it's like, hey, how do I build a, let's say, life infrastructure where I can make it work for me, right? And so your biology and your psychology, right? It's not meant for deprivation and so forth, right? Because we exist in a state of flow and a state of joy, and if we suppress like that, I'll give you an example. I mentioned I love playing in a band in university, right? And so throughout my entrepreneurial journey, one thing I actually stopped doing was playing music. I stopped playing guitar. We're actually even having a discussion about that, right? Okay, even if I have the guitar just visibly, right? And maybe that would like increase the chance I would likely play it. It's like I haven't been, but more so recently as part of my own rest and recharge is actually playing guitar and actually getting into that creative flow of writing music. And I've been finding that such a nourishing part that balances out my work part, right? So
you get to play.
Exactly, because without it, you'll just get stagnant and you'll get stale, and you won't realize why that is, right? But because anytime you deprive yourself off of, some schools of thought like the inner child, or some like getting to a state of play, then you basically deprive yourself of not necessarily work-life balance, but that sort of the harmony, that alignment that makes everything work and everything thrive, essentially.
It's basically allowing time for all aspects of whether it is creativity, work, analysis, growth. Allowing these to be in such a healthy way, and even with eating as well, it's eating with intention, where it's not a burden, but it's I'm choosing to do this, and I have the freedom because I've been disciplined. Sure, be disciplined as you like. But then you can actually, if you've done the right thing by yourself during the week, you're allowed to have a bit of chocolate, or for me, I love my pizza. And I obviously love getting into my health stuff at the moment, but I'm not going to deprive myself of that. Doesn't mean I'm going to every week sit there and eat a full pizza or anything like that. I'll share a pizza with my wife, or something like that every couple of weeks or every month or something.
Exactly. And one thing that I loved in the podcast medium is we get to have a long form conversation, and we start to talk about the different nuances and depths of conversation that can allow for more thought and introspection and reflection. I think something that I like to talk about with, say, fitness and health, right, is different messaging depending on where in the journey you're at with your own fitness and what you need to hear at any given point in time. And I love what you mentioned there, where at a certain point, usually in the beginning, you do need that discipline, you need to build habits, you need to get into that momentum to start with, right? So, but then when you go through that, right, if we're talking about playing the long game of your life, right, there's going to be, like I said, messages like, looking after yourself and, not deprive yourself and enjoying these foods, and how do you basically still make gains in areas of life, right, and not sacrificing or overhauling your schedule.
Yes.
And one thing I think is a big misunderstanding with, say, transformation or reinvention is people have this idea that it's some overnight thing where you got to sacrifice your entire life, or you need to do this extreme sort of like whatever it is.
Yeah.
But it really just starts with one foot in front of the other, just to use a running analogy.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because that compounds, right? And it compounds it, and when you can trust yourself and enjoy and just take that step, something very interesting happens, and the time to get where you want to go actually contracts. Because what you'll notice is anytime you set like a goal and you set like a time frame to it, and you put in this sort of rigid parameters, which is a very old school way of goal setting, you don't contract the time down, you actually expand it, right? And you're constraining you're putting your expectations upon it, right? And there's a whole host of myriad of like problems that get to that, right?
Yeah, you might have a day where, for whatever reason it just hasn't worked, and say if your goal is weight loss, muscle gain, or anything like that, you've had a stressful day, you haven't hit your macros, all of that kind of thing. It's very much like there is a lot of that all or nothing mindset, isn't there? Where people don't give themselves that leeway, and you see this in diet culture as well, where it's like in 3 weeks, you're going to be eating better and you're going to lose this amount of weight and everything's going to be different for you.
Yeah.
No, it's not, because it's not sustainable, and you've gone, okay, I can't eat all these things and I have to do these things. Suddenly the motivation's gone, isn't it? And it becomes a burden. It doesn't become something that you can sustainably do and build into your life.
Yeah, so on that I would say there are small quick wins, right, which seem inconsequential. Easy to do and easy not to do, but those are the things that you can start seeing results
those 1%
very, very quickly, right? It's just, I think, in this Instagram culture, we've been so conditioned by the big things that those things just seem like so simple, right? But that reaction is exactly why it works, right? So then it's disciplining yourself to do what you think is actually, not what you think is going to move the needle forward, but it moves the needle forward, right? And on your point there about diet culture, right, and all those sort of things there, it's like rather than like I said, constraining yourself to these things, it's just like I'm a very big picture thinker. So when I'm talking about systems design, right, how do you design your fitness system in a way that works for you? It gives that variance, right? Because for some folks who I work with, right, they have hectic schedules where maybe they're traveling, and anytime you travel, right, or you locate different places, you're not going to always be able to find a gym, right? And and there's going to be a lot of like the whole host of things that go with that, or even sometimes there'll be like, say, family commitments where extreme diets, right? Are you going to bend your way out of that, right? That's not necessarily realistic, right? And it's not about being this stoic fucking monk in the cave and you only eat this and that. That's a pretty miserable existence, right? So it's designing it in a way where over the big macro picture, how do you enjoy your life and also make those gains, right? Because unless you're part of the very small cohort of people who want to train to prepare to be a bodybuilder or whatever, right? That's not my audience, right? There's plenty of coaches that would help them get to that level and crush and so on. But for the most part, for a lot of us, we want to be able to be strong, be healthy, feel good, look good, right? And as we age, have that longevity where eventually when you become a dad, as you will soon, as you become a granddad, right? You can still, right, keep up the pace or even outpace, right? Keep you're playing footy or playing soccer, right? Just have that energy, right? And so it's optimizing for the long span. And particularly a very good sweet spot of mine is working professionals, right? So late 20s, 30s, 40s, where we don't have the luxury of, for myself personally, when you're in university, you have time to work out. You have time every day to work out. You have time or whatever, right?
No one's doing the extra 10 hours of study on top of their class work.
Exactly.
No one's doing that.
Exactly, right? So it's how do you make it work within the schedule that you have, right? And still being able to like keep everything in balance, right? And I think something within tying a lot back to is when you tunnel vision, right? You're basically burning every other area to the ground, and then it actually takes longer for you to get to the kind of life you want, right? Versus if you just been holistic about everything and just keeping everything in harmony and have that alignment, right?
Yeah. And it's that one step in front of the other analogy again, but it's also, you know, like this step is me entering a season where I want to bulk up, say, so that's what this foot forward is, and then the next foot forward might be, you know, I need to work on my sleep, and that's going to improve these areas of my life. It's not necessarily working on one thing at a time, it's the holistic picture, and, you know, ensuring all these aspects of you.
And these things also stack on top of each other, and then they become subconscious and they become a part of who you are. Right? And something I said as I work more on with more the personalized clients is identity shifting habits.
Yeah.
And shifting your identity of how you see yourself, right? And a really good book, very foundational one for self-image psychology. You've read Psycho-Cybernetics?
No, I haven't read that one.
By Maxwell Maltz. Definitely recommend
Get onto it, yeah.
It's a book, it was written in the 50s. It actually probably is the precursor to Tony Robbins and Jim Rohn and Foundation of Self-Help. But long story short, it's Dr. Maxwell Maltz was a plastic surgeon right in New York, if I remember correctly. And a lot of his clients, right, they come to him because maybe they don't feel good in how they look and whatever, and they want him to basically, you know, do plastic surgery to actually change how they look externally. One thing he found baffling that surprised him, which birthed the foundation of self-image psychology, is that even post-treatment, even after plastic surgery, when the clients look in the mirror, they still see what they perceive as a non-desirable or unattractive self. Right? And he thought it was baffling, which is because we've gone through surgery, externally, you obviously look different.
This is what you thought you wanted.
Exactly. But then it's like whatever your self-image of how you see yourself in the world, how you show up in the world, right, it actually will manifest through that, right? So a lot of self-image, positive psychology, training basically your subconscious mind and how you view yourself, right, dictates how you show up in the world and what you feel you desire, what you decide to go for. Right? It's started off from that book, so I'd highly recommend that book there. Right?
Absolutely, and I'll put a bit of information on that in the show notes as well when this podcast does come out. Yeah. Now, I wanted to shift back a little bit. We have covered a breadth of topics, and that's been really, really beautiful. Now, we've talked about purpose and the importance of that. Now, if you were to describe your purpose to me in one or two sentences, and putting you on the spot here a bit, I don't know, but what would you say that is for you?
Okay, so the verbal expression of purpose is going to be iterative throughout a lifetime, right? Based on life experience you go through, lessons you learn, perspectives, and so forth. But if I was to sum it up in two sentences, you're going to start.
Right. Even a paragraph, mate. I'm flexible.
For me, it's being the best person that I can be, a person that I can be proud of, right? Of the time that I spent on this earth. It's not only doing myself proud, but doing right to the people who brought me up into this life, people who supported me throughout, people who've believed in me. That also includes me, past versions of me, future versions of me who believe in myself and believe in the future version of me who believes in my potential, essentially borrowing from your future inspiration of what you see yourself to be. And when I say that, that has a lot of energy, because whenever there's setbacks or challenges, right, I can always remember that, right? Which is the people who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself, right? That basically gets me back on track, and then from that I build upon that, because then that gives me a lot of purpose and energy, and that also gives me inspiration to then pass that on because someone once believed in me, and many of them weren't believing in me. And if we really sat back, right, and we have the gratitude, and we realize that, and this ties back to one thing I've been realizing, right, over the last year, is the world truly is taking care of you, right? Like, one of the most foundational things I read early in the journey years ago is The Alchemist. You've heard that book. Yeah. It's like, you know, at the time I read it, I didn't think about it much, but man, it's scary because all it's so true. It's like when you truly want and desire something in life, and you want to, like, you know, live an extraordinary life, the universe actually conspires to help you get those things, right? And throughout my lifetime, there's been people and opportunities and things, right? And of course, you know, as you're going about, you take action, you do different things. That's also a part of it there as well. Yeah. So I guess it's a long one way of saying purpose, but for me, it's making myself proud, right? Being the best I could be, and also and making the people who have supported my life, you know, like proud of the person I've become, and also passing that on to the future generation of others, right? And so on, right?
Yeah. So essentially, it's really about...
Not a concise statement, but...
No. So, like, and correct me if I'm wrong here, sort of thing, but it's very much about realising your potential, and there's not necessarily a tie to in what area that is it? It's just, you know, pursuing the best of yourself for yourself, but also to be able to, you know, say, thanks mum and dad, thanks, you know, everyone, like, I did it, you know, and also then to pass whatever it is you learn in this big old life on to other people. Is that sort of where we're at?
You actually unlock something. If I could capture one word, purpose, it's love. So I'll show you a story. May 2024, last year, I did my very first marathon in Great Ocean Road.
Yeah, wow.
That was intense, right? Yeah. So, you know what Melbourne weather's like. It's like cold. Anyway, at the
more
time,
personalities than my ex. That's for sure.
So it's like rain, it's hail, it's sun, like in that day, right?
Yeah.
I did the marathon in 6 hours. So 30 kilometers in was 3 hours, and then the last 14 kilometers took like another 3 hours to do. But towards the last 5 kilometers, knees, my body, everything was aching, in me and everything. Exactly. Yeah. And there was just so many, like, just adrenaline racing through my head. I was like in tears and everything, and I was like, on the Great Ocean Road, like along this way, there's like ambulance just come, like like just in case, right? And in my thought, I was thinking, like, it got to a point where it's so painful where I was like, you know what, if I just stop now, hey, at least I gave it a try, whatever. But I just kept going. It was like raining and hail and so forth. And I remember there was a point where I see the finish line, right? But even if I saw the finish line, like, I just thought, like, fuck, I cannot do it anymore, whatever, right? For some really weird reason, in that moment there, as I was running, I was imagining my mum and my dad running with me.
Yeah, wow.
The best way I could visualize, I could tell you is, have you seen weird tangent? Have you ever seen Harry Potter 4?
Oh yeah.
So you know the part where Harry and Voldemort in the graveyard, they conjure up and then Harry's mum and dad, whatever.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? Now everyone's were for life, but for some very surreal reason, something that driven me in that moment, like my mind's way of was conjuring them running alongside me, right? Believing me, and that carried me. Because that carried me a few extra distances, right? I just had to channel whatever it was, and that just came naturally for me. That channel, that love there. And alongside me, I saw other people just in tears, like they just want to give up, even if the finish line was like right there. And in that moment, something came to me that was just the most natural thing in the world. It's like thinking about yourself, motherfucker. Right? Oh, me, my whatever, right? Right? Yeah. And then how I shifted out of my head was, you know, like, hey guys, we got this, you know, let's do this together, right? Like, we're almost there, right? And everything. And it's been that moment there, right? So the first moment was the spirit of my parents running with me helped me, like, almost get there. And then before we got to the end, the folks around who were like really struggling and were in the same state I felt, But then I shifted that energy outwards, and then just like, hey, you know, let's do this, right?
Yeah.
And that allowed me to just, even if I was just like the last bit, it allowed me to just run towards the end, right? And so, if you're talking about purpose, man, the reason I share that story is that I think the best way to put purpose in one word is love, right? And that spirit, that power of love is what powers everything I do.
I'd take it even one step further there. It's loving awareness, isn't it? Because
loving awareness.
Just from you telling me that story, then this is what I've picked up, right? So obviously you've had that moment where you've visualised mum and dad there supporting you, you know, believing in you, and almost immediately you've taken that in and given that love, that energy out to the people around you that needed it in that time to get them across the line. So you were able to feel the feelings that you felt, the very real pain and the shit, I don't want to keep going. But then you were able to bring that awareness and be like, I can actually help others get across this finish line as well. Literally get across their finish line. You know?
That's true.
Dude, that's so powerful, man. That's incredible.
True. I think the best way to put it is I'm everything I am and I'm everything I've accomplished. One big part is because they believed in me, and I know that in the world, not everybody has that. So I know in some ways it's within my responsibility and duty, if I were to reach my potential, and inspire people, and also extend that love out. So I'm glad you actually articulated it that way, because that's very in line with
beautiful. That's awesome, brother.
And
so, you know, we'll sort of start to wrap up a little bit now. Jeez, we've been talking a long time. It's amazing how it flies, isn't it?
I know, right?
What does 2025 look like for you? Sorry, what are you working on? And you know,
Sure. So 2025, the one word that defines 2025 for me and for everyone involved who comes along the journey is reinvention. Right.
Nice. Yeah.
So reinvention, like I said, fitness has always been a gateway to self-improvement, but let's go even a step beyond that. Fitness has always, for me, been the pathway to reinvention, right? Anytime you feel stagnant, or anytime it's like, maybe you're coasting or it's comfortable, but you know that something's more and that you can step to the next level, the word's always been reinvention. And reinvention has always took in place for me, first in the physical, right? Because movement, putting one step in front of the other, is what allows compounding momentum, it allows clarity, which then flows through into your thoughts, and it flows through into what the next steps would be, right, and so on. So, 2025 for me, I have just recently moved back down to the beach. I've been down here again, and doubling down on the fitness consulting side, right? So, like I said, done a bit of work with that, like last year, with like private clients and so on, and high performers, but I want to now bring it local, right, and really dial in and help folks, you know, get stronger, build confidence, build energy, right, and just live a healthy lifestyle, right, and be in shape, and enjoy the foods I love, and basically having a system that fits into whatever version of life that they have and they want to optimize towards.
Yeah, awesome. So very, very honed in, aren't we? And it's, you know, that's great.
It's taken a little while,
Oh, it does, man.
It
you know, and like you said at the very start, I think it's going to change again. Like going down the track, and that's okay. That's that. You know, being where in your flow state. Nothing's forever.
That's right. That's right.
No, that's really awesome, bro. And you know, you may have been following me on socials a little bit, so you see I do like my quotes. What's a quote or a mantra that you tend to live by, or you know, really resonates with you?
That changes and that flows a lot as well.
Absolutely.
One thing that I said, one quote that was part of my mantra, maybe middle of last year, is that, you know, a lot of times you're never going to be, like, life is so, especially what we've seen over the last few years, right? We live in times of just extreme uncertainty. So how do you be adaptable? How do you be resilient and anti-fragile, right? It's not about controlling the future or knowing how to predict the future or be certain about the future, because you'll never be certain of the future. It's how you manage your not knowing, right? And being okay with that. Because I think a lot of the anxiety and scared and fear and depression and some of these dis-ease that people feel is them not being okay with that. And just learning to be okay with guess what? We're not going to have the answers.
Mm.
Right? It's going to be uncertain. And learning to manage that uncertainty makes you adaptable and resilient, right?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
that was mine for a bit of last year,
Mhm.
and that still remains very true, very pertinent this
Yeah.
year. Yeah.
Absolutely, brother. That's
Yeah.
awesome. And lastly, where can people connect with you on social media if they want to know a bit more about your consulting in the fitness
for
side of
sure.
things?
So you can follow me. So my social handle is at It's Tuan Luu. So that's the same across Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, X, and YouTube. Right. So very simple, very straightforward there. Right. So one thing I'm actually going to launch on the Monday is a 14-day free challenge. Right. So this is going to be a January momentum reset. Because January, there's a lot of good energy and so on, but this is just designed to kickstart or re-kickstart, right, your momentum, and just work a little bit. We'll get a little bit like a taster to work with me, right, so I can help you hone in on your fitness goals, right. We can help dial in your nutritional guidance, your training structure, and so on. And also, for me, in fitness, like results and transformation is everything, right? So a lot of people believe in me because of audience I've built over time and the following and my own transformation. But in order to dial in this fitness consulting and just really help as many people as possible, it will make it, like I said, a lot more impactful. To the reason for the 14-day free challenge is to help as many people as possible, get as many results as possible, get those sick before and after shots, help people get the results, right?
See that they can do it.
Exactly, and instill the belief in them, and the more people that are inspired and they have the belief in themselves that it's possible, the more people I can help.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where the 14-day free challenge starts on January the 20th. Right.
Yeah.
So anyone who's interested, just shoot me a DM just afterwards. Then we can have a bit of a chat about that. I'll send you over some questions and so on, and we'll get you started. Yeah.
Awesome stuff, brother.
Yeah.
So I'll have some more information on that in the show notes as well. And yeah, if you had the New Year's resolution at the start of the year and it hasn't gone according to plan because of life and whatnot, this could be a really good opportunity just to get everything back in order and firing all cylinders for you. So you can follow me. I probably should plug myself as well. I'm on Instagram as The Journey of Trav. YouTube is Trav Dittmar and TikTok is Trav.Dittmar. So just to mix it up with a few different iterations of my name. Thank you very much for tuning in to episode 2 of the Cold Exposure Hot Topics podcast with myself, Trav Dittmar. Tuan, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks heaps for coming on, brother. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And we'll get you on in the future to see how everything's going for you.
Yeah,
the rest
for
of the
sure.
year.
It was a pleasure being on. Thanks for having me on. Yeah.
Anytime, brother. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you next time.
See you guys later.
Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Just a reminder for where to follow me on social media. I'm The Journey of Trav on Instagram, Trav Dittmar on YouTube, Trav.Dittmar on TikTok. And if you are listening to this podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please give me a 5-star rating and leave a review as well. That would go a long way to getting this podcast out there. And if you are watching on YouTube, please like,